Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer1745 here with my continuing playthrough of Hearts of Iron 3 with Black Ice 9.11, and of course we're playing with lots of mods and playing Germany. So let's continue this. This is right where we paused from the last episode. Okay, mobile unit combined arms. 42. Oh yeah, we gotta stop that. That's for sure. Yeah. Let's look here. Military police. That'll be a good one. Helps organizations organize up. Oh, home front. And and strategic air command advanced. We're not going to focus too much on that because we have just a few. We're going to use them to try to lower national unity in dealing with what we're going to come over here for airborne assault tactics for invasion of the Soviet Union. Okay, government secretary focus. Okay, so let's see. War ministry, we might do that. That will reduce recruiting time because we have an 80% chance. Illegal printing, supplies, money, parliamentary issues, national revolt risk. Yeah, we'll reduce recruit time. I think is the likely one we'll have. I'm not quite sure for which one will happen, but it is a motivator to improve it. Okay, the LVII, what's that? The 57th Army Corps was formed. Okay, we'll take it again. These are great units. Okay, the first German contingents arrive in Tripoli of the Speerverband. Libyan departs Naples for Africa arrived. Okay, and as it says, these aren't at this point really proper divisions. These are just different units showing up. A lot of nice photos there. Good, showing up there. So we'll get that starting to arrive, and here we go. Let's see. First continue. That's there. Okay, and we're also getting these here. Okay, and further German troops arrive, and influx of German personnel, promising. Long event chain. Just to show us more photos. That could be okay, which is cool. I still haven't gotten them convinced. Yeah, so just that. Well, let's give it a leader of some sort. We may change that later on, but let's send them east. I really, and obviously they're not going to do it Hearts of Iron 4 at this point. I really want them to be able to make this an animated GIF as well, because I could do it and I've never made an animated GIF, but I'm sure I know I'll learn if they give me the opportunity. Some could be like this could be a 5-second or something. I don't know what the time max would be, but or size max or whatever. But obviously, I do know the longer the bigger the file, the longer it takes to load. So that is an issue. Could be something like a short video clip, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever. I'm not thinking very long, but of horse troops riding through. Movie clip of that. Or it could be like we just saw before, a slideshow that each picture stays up there. I would like it to be able to repeat, but stays up there for 3 to 5 seconds or something like that. Obviously, much smaller file size, but so you could cycle through what's happening. Or I have collected things, something would be sort of like this, but one that I can think of is 3 or 4 pictures of soldiers marching. First, they're all all away from the camera. Then they're almost, the front ones are almost up to where the guy is, and then you see the line of troops move, part way down, and then there's a fourth one, I think it is. This is 3 or 4. But it's the idea that you could do sort of a slideshow that moves through them in stages, or you could even take a simple single stationary photo that I could set the scene and then zoom in on something, because at least I know a lot of photos I have that that if they were screen size, you could see what's going on real well, but the real sort of important part is just in this. But if I just show the important part, you sort of lose the context. So be able to have it and then zoom in on something, or zoom out for dramatic effect, I could do and really make some good stuff. So that's what I'm looking forward to someday. Wish we could do that. Okay, German-Portuguese trade agreement. Portugal remained neutral throughout the war despite extraordinary pressures from both sides, notably over the strategically located Azores Islands, and over Wolfram tungsten trade. Okay, so we do that. We lose some money. We get more metal and supplies. I would have put rare materials, but for the tungsten. And or Portugal relations hurt. Well, we'll give them the money. Oh, and relations improved. Yeah, okay. Late February 41, an agreement between Field Marshal List and the Bulgarian staff allowed passage of German troops on the night of February 28th. Again, this is firing a little late because of things. German troops crossed the Danube from Romania and took up strategic positions in Bulgaria to prepare for their involvement in the Axis campaign. And Portugal. We would give them metal. Okay. We've got plenty of metal right now. And we've had a major victory. Here, I guess. Yes. Birds sitting on a boomerang. Okay. You attack the bird sitting on boomerang group, guys, and you support that attack. Okay. German-Portuguese agreement. Okay, so since we got this, we're going to lose energy. Okay. Sending them coal. We're going to get rare materials plus 5%. Okay, well this is great. This is, I guess, based off of that. And we'll get minus, we're sending supplies for the rare materials. Well, good. That 5% increase is really good. Okay, so that's good. Armored unit command. Combined arms 7 advanced. Okay. Special forces. Yeah, we'll do that. And fighter bomber prototypes have advanced. Well, we are building these, so let's... Those 40 kilometers can be really critical at some points. Okay, U.S. and VC France trade agreement. The defeat of France in June 1940 led to a reassessment of the United States policy towards France. America's interest lay in preventing the French fleet and empire from falling into German hands. The State Department, under prodding from President Roosevelt, began to focus on French North Africa, specifically Algeria, Morocco, and Tunisia, as a point of future resistance to the Axis. Murphy-Weygand agreement. Weygand is a French general, I believe. Murphy, I don't know. Was an economic accord between the United States and the Vichy government, which provided this, the sending of 12 American vice consuls to North Africa to supervise delivery of non-military goods to the civilian population. Okay, so nothing that we can do about that, which I sort of agree with. Don't know why relations are getting worse between the U.S. and Vichy on this, but okay. Because of the pressure? Don't know. I don't know. Oh, it's our relations. Relations with Vichy down by 10%, and our relations. Okay, so I get that, sort of. Vichy's bowing to pressure from the U.S. and relations improved between Vichy. Okay, I'm just reading this down. Vichy gains a bunch of money. USA loses fuel. Okay, so this is there. Okay, new industry for the nation. Build it. No, not now. 21st Army Commando. Yes. Form the 58th Army Corps. Great. Form the 53rd Army Corps. Great. Rommel arrives in Tunisia. Like I was sort of expecting this to happen. Probably should have actually pulled him out. I left him here just because of things. Okay, the 5th Light Division arrives in Tripoli. Great. The 5th Light Division was formed around the cadre from the 3rd Panzer Division, in addition to manpower arrived from the earlier Speer Verband Libyan. Just a note, the last one had this SPEER as opposed to SPERR, so one of those is a typo, I presume. So we'll form that, where it arrives there. Bulgaria joins the Tripartite Pact. Okay, relations improving a lot between Bulgaria and us. Down between Bulgaria and the Soviet Union and Bulgaria and Turkey. So they are now our friends. Yes, we already got them in via the other event. And we have, oh, okay, and the division under stretch, reach, whatever. Okay. We'll see which unit we want to attach that to. That's a battle commander, Erwin Rommel battle commander. Cool. Go east. Mentioning what we just did, and these guys are so messed up. Let's just change the commander now. Figured I might as well grind them up while we had him here. Mentioning that, where is what's his face? One that died after he fell out. He died and then fell out of the Jeep or Kubelwagen or whatever, or fell out of it and then died. You know, broke his neck or something. I don't know if they even know which came first. I sometimes think I know too much about all of this, and sometimes I don't think I know enough. I think he's a level 2. Oh, Cruel. That's who I was thinking of. Cruel. That's who I was thinking. Why was I don't know, thinking it was an S. Like Stupersturm, or I don't know, but it's Cruel. That's who I was thinking of. Okay, you're supporting the attack, and you're supporting the attack. Good. Along with all of those other guys. And let's shift you guys. You're from attacking there to attacking here. Still got some organization left, and we got much more. Actually, you know, we're not doing so well, so you go there. Go after Jerusalem. You held it before. Okay, anti-aircraft ammunition. Anti-air mix support can get improved. Here we are. Okay, it was somewhere here. Wanted to stop that, but we might as well come down here and upgrade this. And twin engine fighter prototypes have advanced. Well, we're doing a lot more of this game. I'm getting better at using my air power. Okay, the 12th or the 11th Totenkopf disbanded. Gained some manpower and supplies back. Inflation in occupied Belgium. Okay, this probably should have fired before, I think, but just with things it didn't. Create the Deutsches Afrikakorps. Yes, we want that. General strike in the Netherlands. The strike of February 1941 was a general strike organized during World War II in the Netherlands against anti-Jewish measures and activities of the Nazis. Its direct causes were pogroms held by the Germans in the Jewish neighborhood of Amsterdam. The strike started on the 25th of February and was largely struck down the next day. It was the first direct action undertaken against anti-Jewish measures in Nazi-occupied Europe, and it was carried out by non-Jews. Good for you, Dutch. Good for you. Good for you. Show them that you need the consent of the governed if you're willing to fight back. A bunch of new stuff. Come on. Not that you always win, but if enough of you fight back. Well, let's first see if we can get these things together. There we go. And we're gonna eventually change out Guderian here, but okay. So now we have back combined arms capabilities. And mentioning this consent of the governed. Most of you know I'm very pro gun ownership. And some people have posted, I'm going to be very careful what I say here because it could be whether by bots or by real humans taken the wrong way. Could be, you know, what good are rifles against tanks and aircraft and missiles and whatnot? So, you know, the Second Amendment is no longer useful against modern armies. Well, you can tell that to the Vietnamese. They seem to kick America's butt ultimately. And you can talk about Afghanistan. They're pretty primitive. They're resisting American aggression. I happen to think helping the Northern Alliance out and helping some of the other anti-Taliban forces are a good thing. But if you disagreed with me, you know, when you're an Afghani, you can fight the U.S. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to take higher casualty rates than the U.S., but they're sure seeming to fight. And so, yeah, simple firearms can be useful. And some of the one of the pictures I posted on Twitter, if you want to follow some interesting viewpoint, you might follow me on Twitter, was a picture of a German firing squad against somebody, you know, standing in front of just, you know, open graves that they were, you know, going to fall into, and with arrows, people with guns, the Germans, people without guns, the people that are being shot. And, you know, somebody was saying, well, you know, you couldn't have defeated the Germans. Yeah, that's true. Maybe you couldn't have. But if you'd said to 6 million Jews, hey, do you want a gun and 100 rounds of ammunition? You know, how many Germans is it going to take to kill those Jews? I mean, you know, if you would have given them out. And so it's just the idea of the consent of the governed. And, oh, what was it? Quote from, who was a socialist. You know, the author of Animal Farm in 1984, who fought in the Spanish Civil War on the Republican side. I know it pops into a bunch of people's names. Boy, I'm blanking on his name right now. but one of his quotes was, there's, you know, a rifle on every American's, above every American's fireplace. It's sort of the traditional colonial or frontier's place to put your rifle, because often one room houses or something like that. And it's the government's job to keep them there, to keep the Americans from becoming too upset that they take their guns down and decide to use them. Having the idea of having the real power reside with the people and not the government is, in my opinion, a very important thing. Yeah, I know you guys get tired of some of my politics, but when I think, what if everyone in the Netherlands had a gun? Whether it's a pistol, a hunting rifle, you know, it can be a single shot hunting rifle, you know, cartridge, but single shot hunting rifle. What if everyone in the Netherlands had a rifle? Would the Netherlands have been a Wild West, you know, in pre-war? Would the Dutch just get so mad and drunk with each other and it just shot each other up every Saturday night and would have hundreds of people dead in the streets? Maybe. I mean, that could be. I'm sure that's what's going on in Switzerland. Wait a minute, I don't think it is. They've had guns and private ownership for everybody, or almost everybody, for many, many years, and there doesn't seem to be a very high murder or shootout rate even. You know, just get drunk and not hit anybody because, you know, hey, can't hit anything while you're drunk. Oh, the British are bombing us. Let's look at our air war here. Now they're coming in. Some of our guys are going up after them, hopefully. Now let's retask you to do coming up again here. Yeah, a little bigger. But, you know, what would the Netherlands have been like? Would it have been such a terrible place if every Dutch person had a gun? And then once the Germans rolled in, should every Dutch person have gone out and fought the Germans as they rolled in? Maybe. And maybe that'd be a stupid thing to do, but maybe not. But then, let's just say the Germans rolled into the Netherlands with their, you know, panzer armies and their air force and all that stuff. And the Dutch people sort of collectively, through some political leaders, say, hey, okay, you're here now, but you behave yourself, Germans. You be very, very nice to us, or you're going to start getting shot in the back every night. And you're going to have the whole Dutch population rise up against you in a, you know, guerrilla warfare thing. So yeah, you're here now because you're fighting the war with whatever. But you better be nice to us, or we'll get our guns and we'll shoot you. And if you even think about trying to come in and confiscate guns, well, as you confiscate in one neighborhood, the other neighborhoods are going to hear about it, and you're going to have a high body count to take down the guns. You know, what would have been different? You know, I just, you know, wonder about that. Now, of course, maybe everyone thinks that, hey, it's better not to have any guns and just let the dictators do what they want to us because, hey, that's the way it's supposed to be. But, you know, yeah, again, like I say, I know you get tired of hearing my politics, but sometimes I just sort of kind of think I should. Okay, you come to there, and then you come back towards here, hopefully, and take those guys down. Okay, you need to stop. Now we're going to retask these guys to here. Win this battle. Concentrate here. Okay, good. You're helping defend there. You stop before you get too much trouble. Okay, now we have Rommel in his proper place, if you will. Von Kleist under him, sure. Move east. Don't know whether, because get in trouble when these things are attached to. You know, yeah, we have room. We can change this. Okay, let's. We're losing a little bit of progress, I know, but probably won't come back to it in enough time. We're going to attach that to there. Make this a bit better. These guys, I'll just attach that. These guys are already pretty good. They really armored cars they could benefit with, I guess, but not really much else, quite honestly. Could have, but we like that, so keep moving there now. Rommel's coming with his African Corps now. Yeah. Okay, we'll check out that in a second. Okay, direct unit, combined arms, direct fire unit, combined arms, whatever. You know what I'm talking about. Okay, yeah, let's help our mountain units out. And mobile unit training has advanced. Yeah, mountain HQs. We'll do that. Build an oil refinery. We are able to build a specialized building. Okay, 12,000 money and 10,000 supplies. We get no oil refinery until August 42. And until August 42, minus 5% ICs. No. Not gonna do it. For two reasons. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I'm just deciding not to do it. One is 5% of all my ICs. I'm not saying it wouldn't be worth it, but that's going to be a lot of ICs, and I'm sort of considering myself sort of hurting right now. And obviously also metal, energy, rare materials, supplies, and money costs. That's all adds up. And of course the big money hit right off, and supply hit right off. That's part of it, but also part of it is because as we're sort of seeing timers keep getting reset on some of these things, because I'm playing in such short segments often. So it may be better for you, and I don't know if I built it. Now there will be other chances to build it. I think that sets a cooldown. So you can decide and look at the math. I don't know whether, you know, whether the math is strictly good or not on that. You're about ready to lose, but oh, we had other things here, didn't we? Yes. Okay, we're not doing well. We'll upgrade SS Reich Division. Das Reich. Okay, SS Division Motorized Reich would be Das Reich, the nation. So okay, we're removing Paul Hauser. That looks good. Yes, SVT. Conf Group Nord, yeah, we'll do that, and that removes those guys from up north and but sets another one up there. It upgrades. And the second SS Infantry unit, which was actually formed before the first. Obviously, they had planned on forming both. Dietrich Eckhart. Dietrich Eckhart. You see down there the SSSD Dietrich Eckhart. He's actually a fairly important guy who helps form Hitler's outlook. He dies what 1924 maybe, but he's a really sort of important guy, and I really haven't looked at him very closely because it's outside of the scope of the stuff I, time wise I've been looking here. But he is a very influential Nazi thinker, if you will, or whatever influence on Hitler. Mentioning that, not too long ago, maybe give you a clue as to how far ahead I'm playing. I often play these, try to play these 2 or 3 at a time, and just because I want to keep a slight padding, because sometimes, oh yeah, I'll be able to make videos, but then things show up and don't make them on time, so I gotta make a few extra, or a little bit ahead. And he's up there now with a more proper infantry unit. And he's, yeah, okay. So, I need a cushion plus making a few at a time. Recently I had an episode that I talk about the SS Christmas. And I use that as sort of, because sometimes, guys, what do I do for the theme for the thumbnail? I've definitely learned that if I have the same thumbnail up there that just, changes episode 10, episode 11, episode 12, viewership goes down. I've noticed that. If I have the thumbnails all looking sort of the same, like all black and white, after a while viewership goes down. So I need to keep changing it up. And so I go like all black and white, or color, or black and white with some color on there, but mostly black. So to change up the style, and it seems to, and definitely certain things seem to go bigger. Sometimes I'm surprised at which goes bigger. One that went really big was a picture of Rommel with some British soldiers standing around just shortly after they were captured. Not Dunkirk, but probably Calais, or one of the places along the coast. That was a high viewership, and I think just because of, and it was particularly high. It wasn't just more people watching on a Friday than on a Wednesday. It was much bigger. So I just think because Rommel was there. But I've noticed if I just stick Rommel 4 episodes in a row, viewership will go, even if there are different pictures, viewership will go down. So I'm having to learn all this stuff and figuring all this stuff out. So, and, so sometimes I have, what sort of is inspiring for this episode to make it interesting thumbnail. But one I came up with sort of I was talking a lot about the SS Christmas celebrations and things like that. Well, in the description, I called it National Socialist Christmas. In the title, it was Nazi Christmas. That very immediately, just because the video was sitting there just fine with just sort of initials for titles, Hoi 3, B Ice, whatever. I have sort of a naming filing procedure that I put these things down on, just sort of keep track of that. But so that was fine. The video's audio contents, because they scrub. If I start saying a bunch of stuff in this audio, and if I'm clear enough for or maybe sometimes unclear enough, can depend, for the audio detectors, they do check what is said in videos. So, and I know that I'm already sort of on shifting ground or weak ground or whatever you want to say for some of the stuff because of what I say. But they scrub this audio for what's said in it. So that hadn't been bad, because that had been sitting there for a few days up. But immediately upon saving the title change, it immediately demonetized the video. And not everything currently, and I could get into more of this, but not everything is being demonetized anymore. It was for a while, almost literally everything was being demonetized. And then within the 2 or 3 days, it was being remonetized. And often it was being demonetized sort of at the key times of when most of the views were happening. But now it's an occasional demonetization that always gets remonetized when I request review of it. I'm still not sure if I'm being human reviewed or not, because my viewing stats are not meeting the level that they say that we'll get a human review within 48 hours. So I don't know whether just by me sort of clicking the button and whatnot, and I don't know whether the person is looking at that actually, or whether that is still a bot doing it. We're not sure. And I say we're not sure because I know other people have been posting different things on YouTube talking about this, and they don't have clear answers. So that stuff gets generally remonetized at some point. Well, this video got demonetized instantly upon saving it. Then I went in and changed the title back, or to what I had in the description, National Socialist Christmas, with a question mark after it. Did that, asked for a review of it. Within 2 minutes, well, maybe 4 minutes, but 2 to 4 minutes, because I started doing hit refresh to see it, it gets remonetized back. So that obviously is not a human looking at it that fast. Just some evidence to some of this stuff. So simply by the AI, nationalist is okay, and socialist is, I'm sure, great, because socialist is, it's been told by its socialist programmers that socialism is a good thing. So National Socialism is good, Nazism is bad. It doesn't understand that National Socialism and Nazism, and probably the people who make the programming don't understand it's the, same thing or whatnot. But you're going to stop and counterattack back into that pocket, I think. But just sort of a little story about how the titles that go with some of these pictures. But so I sometimes have a little bit of trouble figuring out what to do for an image and that kind of thing. And it does matter. It actually surprises me how much it matters for the views. Human wave advance. Yeah, we'll let that go. And we have another heavy transport. Again, I love these guys. They're great. How are we doing on producing of things? Try to do it. Okay, we're down to these 2 battleships being actually in production again. So, let's do one of these. I've got these Jaeger divisions. Those are good. Got a bunch of various units coming up. Bombers, naval bombers. I want lots and lots of these guys. I think I'm having too few of those. Just one of these. Don't want to overdo it, but there we go. And yes, we want to. It looks like the Italians are now retreating. Are the arrows? And they're never going to get there. Okay, aircraft prototype evaluation. Okay, we'll move it over. Gun position. Even though we're going to have some heavy bombers, not a lot, but that's mostly heavy transport improvement, though it's reducing down the range, but that's why we're increasing the range here by 40. That will help with these 2 total of 40 down. What they'll be, and it, will also help flying boats as well. The Roland Battalion. This was a another sort of special forces type, Foreign Legion type group for going in against Soviet Union. Is that in the production cube? Yep. Let's move it to the top. Still just the 3rd, which is still busy fighting in North Africa. Once we get this sort of under control and whatnot, then we will refit it. How many hours until you can attack? Okay, 13. Well, just attack when you're ready. You come this way. I think this attack will stop very shortly. Like I just said, think it was going to stop. And you guys just join that attack. And you guys attack that way. And we've won there, good. And we've got them. Now, why are you retreating? I don't get that. They're not even retreating into an empty province, or advancing into the empty province here. Okay, you come down. To there. Okay, battle of there, whatever. Aljun. Artillery barrels and ammunition. Yeah, let's do that. And how much longer without our colonies? That's what this poster says. The Reich Colonial Bund. Put that in just as another one of these Remember Africa things if you're playing Tanganyika. I have definitely subscribed to the idea that most events, that was from some advice, should have, even if it's just super minor, they said, even if it's super minor, just have some sort of game effect. And I do that, but sometimes we'll just have a, you know, something like that, a poster that I sort of kind of time to try to remember to prod. And it's sort of conditional. It's like you control Greece and you control a few things, and a date. You know, try to prod the player a little bit. Okay, Supreme Command HQs have it. That. So, yes, I've taken it to heart, but it's not a, you know, 100% always will do or anything like that. Okay, yeah, let's do armor. The main thing I'm here is reducing the time between attacks. That's what I'm really looking at. Okay, because we're getting so many great historical HQs. Those other ones are useful, and especially some of the later ones are very useful. Medium armored designs. Well, we haven't looked there for a while. Okay. Armored cars. Good. The Gewehr 41M for Mauser. The Mauser Gewehr 41 rifle, also known as the G.41M, was developed to fulfill requirements for a new semi-automatic rifle issued by the Heereswaffenamt. These requirements had some specific points that severely impacted the final performance of the rifles. Among other requirements, the Heereswaffenamt requested that the new rifle should have no gas ports in the barrel, meaning that you can't drill a hole somewhere in the barrel. That's an important thing. And for them, I mean, really good guns today have holes drilled in the barrels, but this is what a bolt action focused army, which we'll get to in a second, wanted in its semi-auto rifle. They were wrong, but that's their requirement. Should not have any moving parts outside of the weapon. So basically, obviously the breech here moves, but I guess that would be inside of the weapon, but they didn't want like a bolt handle coming back and forth, or I don't know, something else moving as you're shooting. Like you have the toggle handle on a Maxim machine gun moves every time, you know, on a Vickers or on, and there's actually a specific way to grip a Maxim or a Vickers machine gun, and it's designed for a two-handed grip. But you can do it with one, but you need to hold your hands in a certain style, and the way they sort of works is there's a safety that you have to hold the safety off and then push the firing button. So your fingers are sort of in certain positions, but you don't have to do that. You don't have to have your hands in a particular position. It's just you need to have your hands in a particular position so your knuckles don't get whacked and broken by the toggle moving as it's firing. So if you hold it in the correct sort of mount holding, you can't see me do this. Had a friend who had a Vickers parts kit that he built into a non-working. It had sort of wooden side plates, but it looked real. Vickers machine gun. Vickers is basically an upside down Maxim that's streamlined, so it's a very similar sort of thing. But you sort of need to hold it in a certain way to, and if you hold it in the right way, you're perfectly safe. But if you sort of grip it funny, you can get your knuckles whacked pretty damn bad. So they didn't want things like that happening with a semi-auto rifle. That I understand, but a lot of semi-auto rifles, like the M1 Garand, the cocking lever will move as you fire it. It's not really that big a deal, but I understand outside the moving when fired. And the gun shall work as a manual repeater in case of the automatic mechanism failure. So this one here, that is a bolt. Use the round knob here, obviously, but that is a bolt, as in a bolt action rifle, so that you can, you know, you do a half turn or quarter turn up, straight up, and then pull it back, and then load it if your semi-automatic function gets jammed. They had a obviously they had a very low expectations of functionality of semi-automatic rifles, meaning they thought it was be so common that you would need to you know, you manually do it. Now I'll tell you, a lot of semi-automatic rifles, if you don't have like a case rupture, the bullet, you know, the back cartridge, the case rupturing, you can normally cycle the round or the ammunition by pulling back the cocking handle. It's not so easy, and it is slower, generally speaking, than a bolt action. But you can cock, or you can cycle the thing manually fairly easy. Just if a case rupture happens, it can expand and require you shoving something down the barrel to push it out, meaning the extractor won't get it and pull it. But normally the guns have enough of an extractor, something that grabs onto the case and pulls it out. Where like on a submachine gun, which some of these people that are requiring this requiring some of these making these requirements, I'm not sure about the MP40. I just don't know enough about it. It's one of the guns I don't know a lot about, because we don't have many here in America that you actually get to play with and take apart and look at. But some of the submachine guns have are just pure blowback, in that it's the cartridge round just comes back of its own accord as it goes out. And so there isn't necessarily an extractor or a good extracting system. Sometimes in some of the blowbacks there is an extractor, but it's a very sort of weak extractor that you may pull the cocking thing out there, and if there's any sort of expansion at all with the case, again, normally if you load in a bullet, you can, and there's no problem, you can easily pull the whatever semi-automatic or automatic or whatever, pull the lever out, or even bolt action, and the bullet will come out really easy. But once you fire, even on a bolt action type weapon, once you fire the round, the case expands a little bit as you fire it, so it's in there tighter. So that's part of the reason a good Mauser was one of the best. Great claws that come and grab that cartridge and just again, something like I say, if you got the strength and it isn't too badly, they'll even rip a cartridge apart on a Mauser rifle, theoretically, if it's so badly eroded inside, or the cartridge metal is just so badly ruptured that you can even pull the back of that cartridge off of it and leave enough of the cartridge in so that it won't work. So again, you have to shove something down the barrel to get it out. But that claw extractor on that Mauser rifle is great. Why, one of the great things about a Mauser rifle. But that's with a cartridge that's fired, it expands. So you can find failures to eject just because you get weak cartridges, or you got a lot of fouling in the chamber, so that when the bullet goes in, it expands the fouling and everything else. The claw extractor sort of pulls it part of the way, but then comes off of it and leaves the bullet either still partly there or just not flipping it out very properly. Probably getting bored of this description too, but that's sort of how it all works. So they think the gas system or the recoil system, I don't know what they were thinking was going to happen. A Maxim machine gun is a recoil system. It's sort of you can do a recoil system practically. I mean, who knows what someday some modern materials designer will do. But traditionally, you can do a pure recoil system with like a pistol or a submachine gun, a pistol caliber round. Or if you're going to use a rifle caliber round, it needs to be something big like a Maxim or other machine gun to have a recoil system. Recoils don't, in a practical sense, work for a rifle-weighted weapon. You need a gas. So recoil, just the spring tensions and other things in there are a bit too much for the pressure. So you need the idea that you fire it, because the whole point is if you fire the round here and you have even just sort of a minor delay, this comes open too soon, and a lot of gas will come out into your face. That's a bad thing. Also, having the gas come out here means less gas coming out the end, so the bullet doesn't come out so well. If you have a heavy springed, like a Maxim machine gun type thing, you have a heavy springed recoil system, you get enough of a delayed blowback situation with a recoil, well, not delayed blowback, but a delayed recoil type action, so that enough of it goes out. You normally don't have on most machine guns, your face isn't up too close to the ejection port and things like that. So it works in a big machine gun, it works in a submachine gun. It really doesn't work in a rifle type pressure situation. So you need to have this locked up tight. As the bullet goes down, once it gets past a certain point, now here they use a trap at the end of the barrel instead of a hole in the barrel to then trap some of the gas. At this point, now that the bullet's past this point, so it's either left the barrel or almost left the barrel, then it starts to recoil. Then you get some gas out. But again, a lot of it's expanded, a lot of it's already heading down barrel, and all that kind of stuff. So then you can have the spring thing that normally pushes something back in it that unlocks the bolt and then allows the bolt to travel backwards. The Germans had very little faith in this, presumably. The high command did, not necessarily some of the designers. But Mauser went to the requirements. So in spring of 41, Mauserwerk factory received an official contract for 5,000 of these rifles. They had been making over time various versions, ones and twos, this, that, and the other thing. So they'd sent a prototype enough to the Heereswaffenamt to go, yeah, this is what we're doing. Do you like this enough? And they go, yeah, this is good enough. Make us 5,000 for field trials, meaning a lot of them ended up being on the Eastern Front, is go out there and have the soldiers play with them. How easy is it for a soldier to break them? How often do they jam when you just use normal soldierly action, and not soldierly action in a training camp, but soldiers out in the field, whatever it is, meaning they're trying to keep it clean. They're trying to keep, because obviously they can just make 20 rifles and throw mud in it and try to quickly brush the mud out and then see if the gun will work, and you can try all those sort of torture tests. But they wanted enough to be able to pass out to some troops to actually see how it works with soldiers trying their best to keep it functional, because their lives are going to be on the line. So obviously the soldier is going to try to keep it in the best function and use it. in some sort of field. So you, as the player, has a choice to send some supplies to continue to do more research or not. That's sort of your choice here. And what it is small arms research, you get a slight bonus, a few days to it, or the cost of some supplies. So you can already be doing the small arms research. We're presuming that you are of various types of small arms. This is non-specific. This is the only sort of specific rifle one, assault rifles, and this is, rocket-propelled grenade small arms. But small arms, theoretically this means submachine guns, rifles, and whatnot. But Germany moving closer to a semi-auto rifle. Well, support attack. Support attack. Almost thought about occupying that. Stop doing anything. Repair yourself. They have any? No, they don't have any aircraft. We have a bomb there. Ground attack. Move forward. Get to that Suez from this side. You're going to come up and help them. Kill that. Okay, Blitzkrieg Doctrine. Good, good, good. We'll get some of these soon, maybe sooner than I'm thinking, but tank destroyer upgrades. Yeah, that'll go fast. We'll do that. Why aren't you attacking? I mean, you're moving all these guys back here. They look, I don't know what their organization level is, but they're not all gutted. I haven't been... I don't know. Are these like thinking we got to invade Malta, so we need the troops for Malta? I'm glad you've been trying to get Malta, guys, but really? Ooh, we are going after a transport and a fighter bomber. Okay, advanced armor designs. Presumably that means both things like neat sloped armor and better placement of, I don't know, engines and ammunition storage and whatnot. Who knows? Okay, okay, engines we're way far ahead on. Let's move ahead on welded plate construction. It's going to cost us more, but it's better. And just another thing from Tanganyika, Colonia and Hamat, Colony and Home in Words and Pictures is the sub thing. See and read about our colonies. Again, just another sort of interesting magazine. A lot of focus on Africa, but also, I don't know if this is specifically from the former German colonies, but it looks sort of like Indonesia or something like that. All wartime National Socialist, if that needs to be said, German magazines. Because basically there are no non-National Socialist magazines. Well, once the Afrika Korps gets up here, I'm just going to push anyways, even if they're not already pushing. Hedgehog Defense, as in the infantry tactic of that title. Is that a one and done or? Oh, that's over here. Yes, not a one and done, but oh, also another thing, if you're still watching, Someone were talking about, when I was talking earlier, maybe previous episode, about manpower and issues. One of the things you can deal with manpower is these. That's what, if I understand, again, I haven't really played these or with these just because I'm going with what they've judged to be a reasonably standard historical basis for these size strength requirements. And these affect, see, max strength and needed officers. That affects how much manpower is in these units. So if you increase these, whether regular Army SS or whatever, obviously the Germans don't get to do the Guard Army, but if you increase these, each unit of these type, whether it's artillery or mobile or whatever, will require more manpower. If you've increased those early on, it'll eat into your manpower base. If you're going, hey, I've got a lot of really cool techs, or doctrines and techs, here, all these guys that are I'm super cool, and I want a lot of units, but I don't have enough manpower. By decreasing these strengths here, will decrease your manpower needs. At least that's my understanding. Again, someone can post corrections below if I'm incorrect on this, but I do believe I am correct on this. So, like I say, I haven't really played with these. So if you want to free up manpower for more units because your units are super good in these other capabilities, that would be a good thing to do. So just keep that in mind as a let's do these as an option. Again, not required because you don't have to do them, and if you're not in a hard place for manpower. Okay, you just support that because we don't need to actually go into that province with you. Yep, turn that around. But I just didn't want them heading in other directions while we waited for them to come up. Make them harder to take down. We're trying to get supplies to you guys. I know you guys, I could send you home to Lorient, but haven't yet. Okay, let's shift this over to here. We are getting some fuel from here. We'll need to send some occupation people down to at some point. Okay, come on, Vonto, we can get across that river. They're about ready to collapse. Yeah, good. We won sort of both battles. They were attacking us and we were attacking them. Oh, now you've moved farther forward. Great. Move up, move up. Might as well move up to there. Okay, yeah, oh, I started on the right one. Realized it just as I clicked off. Send supplies, probably fuel. What they need most. Okay, naval HQs have advanced. Great. I have been, and I currently plan on keep taking the HQs here, but you don't have to if you don't want to, and still do the research for them because they do increase your organization levels of your Navy or Air Force. So there we go. Because since we now, that's also another reason I wanted to do this, because even if you get the level done here, this won't fire until this is in the axis, and you can, or at least until you could. Well, probably it requires to be in the axis. Oh, Okay, who are we going to put on as leader? Come down to the bottom where we have some naval guys. Okay, yeah, convoy runner. Kriegsmarine, there we go. And leader in Greece. Nothing else this helps occupy. You know, of course, you can cannibalize the artillery and the anti-aircraft for other sorts of uses. No, where do we get over here? But it is also a bit of a defense unit as well. So do with them what you will. I know a lot of you guys, much more than I do, use these other units in more practical applications. I'm just leaving the HQ as a, you know, as for the organization kind of thing. Okay, light armor designs have advanced. I think that'll be grayed out. Yeah. Are we doing assault guns, amphibious? Let's do. Ooh, we could do metallurgy. Yeah, that'll be good. And strategic rocket development. So we can do the flying bomb. A little earlier than we want to do that. We don't need to. Rocket interceptor prototype. But since we were sort of looking here, yeah, let's do armor plate thickness. Get that going now. And convoys for North Africa. Transport of supplies via sea lanes were a crucial element of the war in North Africa. While the British received material from depots in nearby Alexandria, access supplies had to arrive to Tripoli and other minor harbors in Libya. Furthermore, the islands of Malta, Britain's unsinkable aircraft carrier, allowed attacks to be made on Axis convoys across the Mediterranean, including by submarine. I don't know if they'll say that in a minute, but that was also not just aircraft, but subs. Crossing the Mediterranean. During the convoy war for Libya, June 1940 to January 43, the Royal Navy and the Regia Marina fought intensively to prevent each other from undisrupted support of reinforcements, supplies, and fuel. Abet Rommel's later claimed that the loss of too many supply transports between Italy and Libya was responsible for the defeat of the Deutsches Afrikakorps at the Libyan-Egyptian border around El Alamein in late 1942. Recent research concluded that the Regia Marina was able to deliver approximately 85% of its convoys to ports in North Africa. Regia Marina even managed to pose a serious threat to British sea lanes in the central Mediterranean. They posed a serious threat to transports in the central Mediterranean. They really didn't pose a real threat to the British Navy. What was the threat, and I haven't even got to the end of this, what was a threat to the British Navy was the Italian Air Force, much more so than the Sea Force, you know, the naval Regia Marina. In conjunction with operations of the German Luftwaffe, the Axis sustained an intensive campaign, which enabled to a great part the success of the Axis ground forces in North Africa. Much more problematic was the transfer itself of supplies, reinforcements, and fuel from Libyan ports to the front, which constituted a significant part of the fuel. The length of the supply lines from the depots to the front most of the times determined the operational ability of each of the German and Italian Army and the British Eighth Army. Closer to their depots, the armies were more successful. Their operations turned out to be the event series will fire every month with random chances of either granting supplies in Tripoli or reducing it to simulate the convoy war. Well, that's cool. Couple of notes here, and I believe this is from revolverheld's mod. As sort of stated in here, I do believe, and as Rommel says, there was enough supplies sent from Italy to North Africa. The problem was they didn't all show up. Enough was sent, but not enough made it. 15% of, if you lose 15% of the supplies, that is enough to starve you out of supplies, because especially if you can sink, and trust me, the British with their Ultra were decoding things, and they put much higher priority on fuel convoys, than on food convoys, say. Because there is food grown in technically it's Libya and Cyrenaica. This is Cyrenaica over here. This is Libya. Obviously, it's one country now, but it was seen at the time as basically two different regions, Cyrenaica and Libya. And going way, way, way back, seen as two different regions. There's sort of enough of a geographical separation via the desert between. You can sort of see sort of hills a little less deserty, sort of little less deserty over here, sort of nothing of a desert that for at least most hardly any real developments. This, of course, becomes is oil rich and is now much more developed. But sort of Libya is over here, Cyrenaica is over here. And then you have the sort of super desert between them and before you're starting into Egypt with just the Siwa oasis out here. Small thing up there. So there's sort of the idea that enough was sent, and yeah, I'll totally grant I didn't know the percentage, but 85% makes it through, 15% can be enough to do it. Now, I am sure, absolutely sure, and know that part of the way that they were doing a bunch of this was trying to send it the shortest, most secure ways to get them to the ports undisrupted. And you're very right about the cost of supplying it. The British that were coming here, one of the reasons that Rommel is able to turn them is because they're now getting low on supplies. And just think, if you've got an artillery piece and you've got 10 rounds, you're going to be very cautious on where you fire that, indirect artillery piece. You want to fire it on confirmed enemy positions, and you're going to want their rounds to be effective. But if you're sort of like Americans, you've got 10 trucks sitting behind every artillery piece, and you go, hey, there could be Germans on the other side of that hill over there. Well, yeah, there could be. Well, shall we just fire 10 rounds over there just in case there's... Yeah, okay, go ahead, just fire 10 rounds or whatever the thing on the other side of the hill. That'll scare away the Germans if they're there. Then we'll go take a look-see, often called, at least by Vietnam, fire by reconnaissance. Or no, reconnaissance by fire. Sorry, reconnaissance by fire, meaning could be guys over there, let's shoot at them. And if we shoot at them, they'll think they're spotted. It's often with just rifles or machine guns or whatever. They'll think they've been spotted somehow and decide to shoot back at you at a greater distance than waiting for like the proper ambush or getting really close. So, and you can normally see, gun flashes to see, if there's people returning fire, as well as hearing rounds zipping sort of nearby you if you've ever been shot at. You know when rounds are coming near you. Trust me. I've been, shall we say, mostly in a safe. Depends on a couple of incidents, but we won't go into. But mostly, I've been in safe conditions when I've been shot at, meaning in a safe, like behind a concrete wall with lots of earth, near targets but you hear rounds still zipping by. So I know what rounds coming within feet of me sound like. And so if you're not in a feeling secure spot, you know when rounds are coming at you. So you sort of kind of know where. So you can do. The Americans did do a lot of reconnaissance by fire at times. Just suspected enemy positions, and it isn't someplace that's thought to be, like a town to have lots of civilians in them or something. French civilians or whatever. Friendly Allied civilians. You wouldn't necessarily just want to randomly blow up towns, but just, groups of woods or behind a hill or something like that. You fire a few rounds and just in case there's some enemy there. You haven't even seen anybody all day. It's just there may be guys there. You decide to shoot at them. So that's sort of the American way of war, is that with all of those supplies, and I'm not joking about the 10 trucks of ammo. They may not be all there right now immediately today, but they're all in the pipeline moving up. And the British, who are getting close to, Tripoli, they're moving their supplies up. They're having a lot of trouble doing it. So they're going to have just those few rounds. Now, it can be really effective in, the 10 rounds, 20 rounds, whatever number of rounds, really effective in a battle once you are seeing the enemy. But once you're out of your ammo, your artillery pieces are just big things to tow around. They're no longer any good. Rifle, at least you can stick a bayonet on them and stab somebody. But, and who's going to really do a bayonet charge in the desert? You do it at night, you get close to the enemy, they're in trenches, and you do a trench raid. And they did those in North Africa. Both sides did them. And you're coming in and you're really close, and so you have the bayonets. But you know what I mean. Out in the open desert, in the middle of the day, no one's really going to do a bayonet charge. You just decide, if the enemy still have bullets and you don't, you decide to surrender. That's what you do. There's nothing really no other choices at that point that are effective. And so there's definitely limited supply capability from these ports. And this was why Britain holding on to Crete would have been more of a problem than if Germany had taken it. Obviously, the Germans lose anyways, and the Italians lose anyways in North Africa. So Germany capturing Crete doesn't secure them the Mediterranean. But by being here and being able to fly in this type of area, because if you're sitting out here in the desert, sure, you can fly out here and try to bomb ships, but you have to. Oh, and another thing, from here to at least El Alamein, but maybe a little bit further, but to El Alamein, they actually built a pipeline. The British did. They built, so that you're bringing in fuel or whatever to a major port. They're putting it into an oil pipeline, not a huge one, but enough of one. Or was it a water pipeline, or both? There may have been a water pipeline. I could be mistaken. It could be a water pipeline that they were piping water out here. Maybe it was both. I know they did make a fuel pipeline across the channel for the D-Day, post D-Day thing, to get fuel flowing. I mean, that's how, once you, especially here, we're getting, this is again 1940s. The Americans are like, hey, yeah, we need fuel. We're going to build a pipeline and lay it under the channel, and be able to supply our forces. Again, the supply war. The American way of war includes heavily on super supplying themselves, and that is part of the reason they are so much more effective. We can talk about how great the Wehrmacht is, whether it's Panzerlehr or Großdeutschland, or some, super German units, and they're really well, with especially like Panzerlehr, with all veterans and really highly trained students out there, know how to really use their tanks and their reconnaissance, and they're all super great, and they've been, really great. They come up against Americans, they get their butts kicked. Because the Americans are good too. I'm not saying like soldier for soldier, the Americans are any better than, Panzerlehr or anything like that. It's just the ability to have so much supplies and other support elements that no matter how good your best German units are going to be, they're going to be destroyed by the American way of war, which is its supply. It's lots of guns, lots of, semi-auto guns, and feeding, and, shoot all day, if you need more ammo, just go back and pick it up, soldier. I mean, you can carry, you can have as much ammo as you can carry, kind of thing. And again, pointed out, Germans, they lose a tank, or a tank is damaged. That crew is waiting for that tanks to be repaired and put it out there. You can get a lot of stories. The Americans, or the British, once they're being supplied by the Americans in the European campaign, was one crew, I forget whether this was, I think it was a British crew, but it was either a British or an American crew, was fighting through this thing. 2 or 3 times they had their tank destroyed, knocked out. Within the next day, within 24 hours, they were given a new tank. And, when later asked the veteran, many, many years later, well, where did it come from? I don't know. They just had a new tank for us. So they had so many more tanks than they had crews for them. Because you only had, 40 tanks in a battalion or some number, and we've got another 40 tanks sitting back there just waiting for needing of replacements. So your tank's no longer operational. Here's another. just, you know, oh, the crew's dead? Okay, well, we got to get a replacement crew up there too, and the tank. Go. Now, they did do recovery of the tanks, the Americans. I have read about that, and really, they, you know, cleaning the burnt body parts out of the inside of the tank, and hard to get the smell out and whatever else. So eventually, you know, they, after scraping inside and cleaning out and getting the tank up, they'd repaint it to try to hide the dead body smell from the burnt bodies, or whatever, and to get the Sherman back in focus. So they did have a recovery and repair and put back into the field system, but they had just enough tanks to, within 24 hours of a tank being knocked out, you had a new one, and possibly, if needed, replacement crew members, and you were back in the fight. The Germans had nothing like that. So again, you can have the greatest panzer layer, greatest, coolest panzer killing tiger unit, whatever. You aren't going to win against the American way of war. And that's, you know, if you're going to, you know, that's what the Soviets sort of understood with their Warsaw Pact. I know some of you have looked at some of this stuff. I talked to, at different times, a bunch of different people that had been trained, Americans that had been trained to deal with what they expected the Soviets were. Those units were just going to be ground down. The Soviets, their whole is they're going to put a unit into the field and just grind it to nothing, and then follow on with more units against the Americans, because they just, that was the way they knew. They couldn't repair, they couldn't replace, they couldn't maintain fighting like the Americans would. So they just attacked with their, you know, elite Soviet division sitting in East Germany, and that was just going to grind into the Americans, and then follow on waves of troops were just going to be coming in with more. But they weren't planning on doing tank replacements. It was going to be a short burst strategy to overwhelm the Americans, hopefully in just days, because they knew that the Americans were going to be able to send in more ammunition and more supplies and more equipment. The Soviets weren't going to be able to do that, because I don't know if you know this, but some of the Arab-Israeli wars, the Israelis ran out of some ammunition. I don't know if it was the Sinai campaign or whatever. It was one of them. And they were like, "We're out of ammo." And they told the Americans, "We're out of ammo." No problem. While the Israelis were out fighting the Arabs, mostly Egyptians, Gabel Nasser, which the Americans weren't fairly fond of. In was flying various, I don't know if they were C-130 Hercules or whatever, but flying in aircrafts with tank ammo and whatnot into, way away from the, obviously these aren't very far. You get there in a couple hours driving, but flying into, the airports, American transports bringing in ammo, just regular like tank and artillery ammo, and to keep the Israelis supplied, because the Americans, they could do that, just fly in that ammo, and whether probably coming from German bases up here, but it didn't matter. It comes from wherever in the world it needed to come to, and they could drop enough off to keep the Israelis going against the whatever Arab enemies that there were. Now the Israelis learned about this and have since stockpiled lots more ammo for future need, but it's just the way the Americans are able to do it. So yes, so that I do agree with the idea that supply lines stretching out were a big factor. But and part of it is yes, how much supplies can you put through Tobruk? But also like positions, flying from here is one thing, but flying out here, because you can fly for, if you're flying from here to here, okay, great, but you can fly from here to here, and, cuts off more possibilities of sinking ships and all that stuff. So now, of course, we have taken so much more of the ports, and this changes things. So again, you might have a check here, revolverheld, for on some of these guys, control of some other ports, control of Cyprus and Crete, as well as Egypt. Just an idea. Again, I don't know how, obviously I'm adding to your burden, but we have a 5% chance of more supplies in Tripoli, a 5% chance of reducing some, and then 30, 30, and 30 of more, or reduce. Okay. I don't disagree with the idea of this at all. I think this is a cool idea. I really do, revolverheld. I just don't know how much conditions based. I presume you're having a check for Malta as from your description, which is cool. But holding Malta, yeah, it affects the situation. But if we can route supplies through here, especially if we're controlling all of this and we're coming in here, where and I would also make sure that again have a check for holding Alexandria, because if whether it's Axis control of Alexandria or just have British control of Alexandria, however, that would probably be the easiest tag to check. British control of Alexandria. British control of Alexandria, great. But whether it's the Italo-German front moving and getting Alexandria and holding Crete and Athens, Malta is immaterial to that. I mean, it really is, because sure, you're maybe running some submarines there, but you're able to route convoys around this way. Even if there's still, British holding out somewhere over here, you're able to come in this way enough that it's going to change the situation. This is sort of my happenstance. I don't know if it would really change convoy supplies, because you're talking about supplies to here. I see, of course, those affect supplies here, but still. You might think about it. And there may be a check. Again, I am not looking at your code, revolver held, because I want to sort of be surprised by it. So, but you might want to particularly add a check for Alexandria. Okay. We have a little bit more. We're pushing ahead on a lot of these technologies, which is good. Yeah, let's do this Kruger thing. Just make sure it's the the 25th Infantry Division. Yeah, we'll take that risk that it's something that's upgraded to a motor. Okay, cool. I think that may have been in Greece, but it doesn't really matter. If it was or not, it's not in North Africa, so it's not in a critical theater. Okay, you're all sort of waiting for your timer to count down. Flying boat prototypes. And that's grayed out. Well, let's get started here. Okay. In the dead, Return of the Ashes of Napoleon II. Most of you probably hardly heard of him. I had, at least. In the dead of winter of 1940, the remains of Napoleon II, the only son of Emperor Napoleon, was because his other sort of son was really the son of his wife, not his son. But so he wasn't anywhere in the line of succession, because it would go to his brothers and whatnot. But what is it? Josephine, son from an earlier marriage. He was quite fond of him and was with as a aide de camp or whatever in the Egyptian campaign and some other stuff, and was definitely helped Napoleon out, but was nowhere thought to be in any line of succession by anybody. The only son of Napoleon, of the Emperor Napoleon, was transferred from their burial place in Vienna and the Dome of to the Dome of Les Invalides in Paris. This was a gift to the French by Adolf Hitler. The remains of Napoleon I had been returned to France in December 1840 at the time of the July Monarchy. For some time, the young prince, who had briefly been emperor, rested beside his father. After the remains of the prince were moved to the lower church, while most of his remains were transferred to Paris, his heart and intestines remained in Vienna. The gesture was intended to win support of the French people, but only managed to precipitate a political crisis in Vichy, where Marshal Pétain ordered the pro-German Deputy Prime Minister Laval arrested. Well, we've already seen the Laval arrested event, but this thing does help out, because this is the one that I did help out. I don't know that, how much of a propaganda thing was, but that's sort of the effect I decided. Help out relations with Vichy. The reason he was buried in Rome or in Vienna is because his mother was a Habsburg princess. Divorced Josephine to be able to marry the Habsburg princess for an Austrian alliance, which didn't last. And so once Napoleon's defeated, the princess returns to Vienna with her son, and he mostly grows up in and around the Habsburg court, not around his father. Okay, send additional artillery units to North Africa. Yes, please. I want all of our... Ooh, lots of artillery units. Big batch of artillery units. Don't know how best to use these, and I don't know if I figured that out last time. Probably combine at least a few with that. I don't know if adding... Well, that could use... Because I got those flak units. Adding some artillery there would be cool. It's already sort of full. And again, I removed the check for what is it? British controlling Tobruk, I think it was, for most of these events for my version of this playthrough. It's different than yours. The reason I did that is, how do I put this? Revolverheld is sort of, in some ways, especially with some of his other command stuff that I've refused to, I didn't, select, is making sort of Hitler's war. And that is not a wrong or a bad thing. That is just not the way I want to play. If I want to sort of play that, and I've sort of been thinking about this, and I'm going to make a few more training episodes for War in the East, and I'm getting ready to play the, grand campaign of War in the East. If you want to sort of play that, that's sort of what the War in the East is. Sort of, units come on as a historical availability and that kind of thing, and it's sort of designed that way. And it's not a bad or a wrong way of doing it at all. It's just not the way I want to play this game, and it's not like I'm just looking for free units. And I'm sort of going in this whole situation is what if? That's every one of us are playing what ifs here. What if? Who wins what battles or loses? It's maybe not wild what ifs. It may be just minor what ifs. What if Germany took, Moscow before the winter counteroffensive, or what if, we're playing. Well, what if Germany, Hitler, whatever, focuses on the Mediterranean instead of going after the Soviet Union immediately? And that's why I want these units, because they're all reasonable types of stuff that Germany would have sent, along with other, obviously, divisions that we have down here to fight in North Africa. So some of it is just immersion. Some of it is, well, sort of paying, because I'm still paying whatever the costs are for having the events fire that would normally happen. So then there are some costs. I don't know if they're showing up here or if they were just one-time things, but African campaign right there. See, just a few up from the bottom, 2.5% minus. See, I'm paying that, so I want the units. I'm not trying to get, at least in my mind, I'm not trying to get anything for free. I am definitely trying to have an African focus or Mediterranean focus, or whatever you want to call it. And of course, African when we get to expand into Tanganyika. Okay, infantry unit combined arms advance, which we're going to really start getting into these 41 tech soldier. We already got all those. I keep forgetting to, well, I don't get notified of these that happen because too many things. Home front coordination, supply throughput. Okay, I guess we're doing enough, especially we are doing these railroad networks, which really include supply throughput, but the supply transfer cost minus, that's really good. Because the cost is how much tax you take away from the supplies that moves from province to province. Supply throughput is just reduce how much a province can move at any one time. But you can also increase repair rate and unit cooperation, so we'll do that. And, oh, fighter pilot training as well. Okay, cool. Yeah, let's leave that. No. Let's do TAC pilot. It's 41. We'll get to 42 when 42 happens. Naval bomber prototypes. Yeah, let's start up here. Get that going. Right now, these guys who haven't been engaged in action, they can, nope, okay, didn't think so. You come down here. Hopefully you'll just move a little bit faster. Okay, some semi-motorized infantry regiments and a Volan battalion, good. And it's time to end this episode. I want to thank you all for watching. I want to thank you for liking the videos. And we have Chinese partisans, fascists. Oh, it's just this outbreak stuff, maybe? Are you in combat here now? Oh yeah, okay. I don't know why it's the Chinese or whatever. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for liking the videos. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. There's a button on the screen there to do so. And of course, please post questions, suggestions, ideas, corrections. Love hearing from you. See you next time for more Hearts of Iron.